The Baseball Together Network presents the Philly Baseball Together podcast with your hosts, Jason and Tory. And now, Philly Baseball Together.
Welcome back, listeners, to this belated episode of the Philly Baseball Together podcast. And I got to be honest, Tory, this falls on me. I was the one having scheduling issues last week because I was so busy with work.
How dare you? No, it's funny because you were like, if you want to record something yourself, you can. And I was like, I don't know what I would talk to myself for 30 minutes.
I felt bad. I felt guilty because I'm like, I just can't pull it off this week like I wanted to.
Hey, that's let's back up and let's instead say this, that we wanted to wait until it was closer to midway into the closer to the halfway point of the season. We'll say it that way.
That's fair.
Well, yeah. We won't say that either of us was busy or anything like that. We'll say we were just looking to, more towards the halfway point, which is roughly where we're at. For people listening right now, we're recording this at night. The Phillies just beat the Marlins and Alcantara 2-1. Which was, that's a huge win, honestly. Especially because, they had been on a slide a little bit. And so to beat somebody of his caliber, like chef's kiss. Mwah.
Right. I agree with that. Although Alcantara still got me 23 points in our fantasy league, so I'm not going to complain at all about that.
Yeah. So it's win-win for you. Yeah.
It really was. So you had mentioned, let's go over where we are at this halfway point of the season.
Okay.
So I would say probably, I'm still upset that Bryce is down, and we're not going to see him probably until later in the season.
And now, and that happened after our last podcast. Is that right?
It did, yes.
Okay, yeah. So we haven't really even talked about that yet. That's a huge blow because, obviously he was probably top 5, if not maybe in the running to repeat his MVP season. So it is a huge blow. Luckily for us, Schwarbino really stepped it up in June. He won Player of the Month. He won Player of the Month in June. He's going to be in the Home Run Derby on Monday. So we've still got some good vibes going. But I'll let you talk though, and what you think about the Phillies at this halfway point though.
I think June we saw the team that we were expecting to see all season. I think really the biggest thing for this team was the firing of Joe. We had that 30 minutes of bitterness, and then he got canned, and this team completely turned around. We got to see what Schwarber can do. I've never heard Ricky Bottalico happier on the post-game show.
Yeah.
Although, I gotta be honest, bitter Ricky Bottalico is my spirit animal. So.
Bitter Ricky. I love the what is it? It's like a Twitter handle, I think, like Ricky Bo is going to be pissed. I think that's what it is.
I love it.
Yeah. And man, yeah, I loved Bottalico when he played for the Phillies, and I love him now also. I kind of wish I liked when the post game was Mitch Williams also. Do you remember when it was Mitch Williams, Darren Daulton, and what the heck is his name? Michael Barkan.
Yes.
I think it was, and this was, back in like 2010 and obviously and everything. I don't think Daulton did it for long, but, I liked that mix a lot, but we're getting way off topic though, but I agree with you about June. I think we saw some great wins in June, especially like the 3-game sweep of the Angels was great. Bryson Stott hit that, I think it was a 3-run homer to win the game. The one where Harper hit the grand slam to tie it in the 8th, I think, right? And then yes. Bryson Stott hit the 3-run homer to win it in the 9th. And I think that was maybe the second or third game after we had fired Girardi. And that's when, I was looking at the team and I was like, heck, this team is playing with a little bit of fire. And I mean, and that's what you want to see. When you're a fan of a baseball team or any sports team in general, you just like it. You like to see a little bit of pep in their step. You know what I mean? And so I have to admit, I like how they're playing. Even now, when they had just, dropped, was it 4 or 5 in a row before the win tonight?
I want to say it was 4 because they
Okay.
had that series against the Cardinals that put them well in that 3rd spot. They're not in it at this moment, but they
Mhm.
were. And I want to say it was after that Cardinals series that the wheels kind of fell off there for a little bit.
Yeah. Well, because it was a 4-game series, so they won the first 2 to the Cardinals, then they lost the next 2. Oh, that's right. And then they lost the next 2 to the Blue Jays, so it was 4 in a row. Yeah. Are you still there?
And I mean, yeah,
Oh,
I'm here. I can hear.
okay.
I
You
was
looked
just
like
listening
you were
to you.
froze for
Sorry.
a second. Yeah.
That's my superpower. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's what gets me out of trouble a lot. No, seriously. um, yeah, I mean, but and here's the thing. I'm a realistic Phillies fan. Every team's going to go through spurts where they lose some games and they win some games. I mean, no
Yes.
team's going to win every game. And I think the way the game is played now, you're not going to see a lot of teams winning 100+ games every season.
Right.
This isn't, I mean, the game's so different from when the Phils were last in the World Series. So,
It's true.
but I think what we're seeing with this team, and I got to go back to something we talked about in the very first episode, when I said what I quoted Charlie Manuel as saying that when you win games, the defense comes along with the winning, and
Yes.
the defense when they're winning looks good. It does not look as bad as everyone was claiming it would be.
It really doesn't. And I haven't looked to see like what the actually where they are in terms of like defensive runs saved or anything like that. I admit when it comes to advanced stats with that, I know more about the hitting side of like advanced stats than I do defensive. So I haven't looked into that, but just I think they passed the eyeball test, honestly, though. Just like watching the team and watching the plays that they make. I think Stott made a great play the other night that I saw. So I mean, even Bohm has looked decently at third. The outfield hasn't looked like lost or anything, except for Odubel that one night where he was like, "Where's the fly ball?" And then what was that? Was that the one that I can't remember what? Oh, that must have been the game against St. Louis that we lost. I think that was one of them. I think I can't
I
quite
think so.
remember. That or it was the one game against the Nationals that we lost 3-2.
Let's see, we're gonna have to start keeping notes.
I know. Well, I'm looking at the schedule right now, and I'm looking through. By the way, so I sent you a text about this, but I wanted to say it in the on the podcast as well. So I had mentioned before we started the podcast that last week I went down to Wildwood to that's just what me and my wife and my son do every July 4th. We go down to Wildwood. We just have a little bit of we have a little bit of fun and everything. So that was
Get
the
ice
one.
cream.
Yes, of course, yes. So that was the one game where we don't have cable, so I don't get a chance to watch like a lot of the games live. But they have cable down there, so I was so excited that I was going to show my son like the game, and I was like, okay, yeah, so this is the Phillies. We're going to sit down. We're going to watch the Phillies. And so we sit down, and of course that was the first inning where the Cardinals hit back to back to back to back to back. Was it 5 home runs in a row? I think was it 5 home runs in a row? And that was painful. That was painful to watch. And I remember I turned to him. He's only 3, so he doesn't understand. But I said Luca, I'd love to say that this is not what it is to always be a Philadelphia sports fan, but it is, Um, but I will say one good thing about that game. They nearly came back and won that game. That was so they because it was 5-5, I think, for a while. Then I think we ended up losing, I think, 6-5. So they showed a lot of fight coming right back and getting into that.
And this team has shown quite a lot of heart since the changeover from Joe to Rob.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that to me really stands out from the first half of the season is post Joe. This team has a swagger. You're seeing how much heart they have, that they can battle back. I mean, they battled back and won a bunch of games that I'm like, they can't keep this up. They can't keep winning games from behind every night.
Yeah.
And they had a streak where they were doing that. And it was scary because at some point you either got to get ahead and just win the game or it's just going to fall off.
They're I think the 1980 Phillies were called the Cardiac Kids. And, I think that's, pretty similar to what this team is also.
So sidebar here, since we talked about Wildwood.
Uh-huh.
Where's your favorite place to get a slice of pizza?
Max. Definitely Max.
I agree with you wholeheartedly on that.
Oh, good. Okay, good. Yeah. Yeah, and I missed it this week. Last weekend I was down there. I didn't get a chance. We took a ride down the boardwalk early in the morning on bikes and everything, but they weren't open yet. And it's different, when you have a 3-year-old, because you can't just say okay, well, and my aunt has a house down there, and she's only maybe 3 or 4 blocks away from the boardwalk. So, we could walk there pretty easily. But, when you have a 3-year-old, it's not like you could just say okay, peace out. I'm going to go grab a piece. You're going to be good, right? Obviously you can't say that.
Right.
So, so it's harder to run and get some pizza, but definitely Max. Always Max.
Yeah, I prefer Max. My dad is a Sam's guy. I'll eat both, but Max is my favorite.
Yeah, definitely. And I saw that I think it was July 5th, or maybe it was the 4th actually, because we left, I think, on the 4th, and later on that day I saw a bunch on Reddit. I think somebody posted some pictures of a bunch of the Phillies playing wiffle ball on the beach of Wildwood, and I was I just missed them.
It was Bohm.
Yeah.
Was it Bohm's, Stubbs, and who was the third person?
Maybe Stott? I don't know. Or Moniak, maybe?
Now.
Yeah.
Moniak was in there, yes.
That's what yeah. Boy, you know what? Talking about people from the first half, that's a good transition. He was somebody I was so excited about coming out of spring training, and I was like, this guy is just tearing the cover off the ball. And I mean, obviously he was the first overall pick in 2016, so I'm thinking to myself, yes, he's finally stepping into his own, but he's really been just, kind of nothing this year. And I hate to say it like that, but I mean, it's kind of, it's a little true. And I don't want to say that his time is running out, but it is. It definitely is.
It is. And that bothers me because he's someone I saw down in AA. And I liked what I saw from him. But I mean, conversely, let's talk about Stubbs.
Yeah.
Stubbs is
a sweet
fantastic
swing
backup.
He is.
JT.
Yeah.
And I was a bit of an Andrew Knapp guy. I liked Knapp because Knapp, he wasn't the greatest player by any means, but he always played with heart.
Yes, he did. And he even had I think I remember last year, maybe it was 2 years ago now, he had a game-winning hit against, I think it must have been last year, he had a game-winning hit against the Giants. So I always remember, at least, Knapp had that. But yes, and he seemed like he was kind of like a real teammate kind of guy also. But I do like Stubbs. I mean, he's batting .270, 3 home runs, 10 RBIs, OPS of 833. So yeah, I mean, he's been great for the Phillies this year.
He's absolutely what they need when JT's not available.
Yes. And I kind of wonder a little bit because, there's been rumblings in the minors. In fact, I think he just played in the Futures game what is it, Logan O'Hoop or O'Hop? I can't think of how to pronounce his last name. He's been making some waves also down in the minors. So I don't know. I mean, maybe, and I don't want to say that they will, but who knows? Maybe, next year they could even use or think of using JT as a trade bait. Not that they would or should, but, you never know.
I think we got to get into that stuff at the end of the season. I think it's too early yet to call that kind of situation.
Yes, yeah, that's true.
So who do you think is the midseason MVP of the team?
Well, I mean, if Harper was still, I almost said alive. If Harper was still playing, sorry, if he was with us, if he was with us today, yeah, throw salt over my shoulder, turn around a couple of times. No, but so if Harper was still playing, it would 100% be him. I mean, he was playing with such fire. I mean, he really is. He really is coming in and looking like he's a generational player that we thought we were getting. And but since he's injured, I'm gonna have to go with the Schwarbino. Kyle Schwarber. I mean, he's just looked so good. When he hits the ball, he hits it a ton. Now obviously he also strikes out a lot too. That's what the what is it, the three true finishes in baseball. It's either going to be a home run, a strikeout, or a walk, I think is what they say.
I believe that's what it is. Yes.
Yeah, and I mean, and I think that nobody embodies that more than Schwarber. But he deserved to be in the All-Star game, and he is, thankfully. Now, let's talk about the 1A midseason MVP, which is who should be in the All-Star game, Zach Wheeler. What a snub.
I agree with that.
I mean, come on. I mean, get it together, MLB fans. But I think he was snubbed because I think the Reds had a pitcher that went, and he was their lone
representative.
The lone rep for that team. So
well, I mean, they are pretty awful.
Not as they've kind of picked it up a little bit, haven't they? Because I mean, at the start of the season, weren't they something terrible, like 3-20 or something like that?
I think at one point, just off the top of my head, they were 4-21, so they were probably 3-20 at some point.
Yeah, now I want to actually look to see what their record is. Welcome to Reds baseball together.
34-55.
Oh, 34-55.
The Nats are worse.
Okay, so that's that's something because you didn't expect that with the start that the Reds had. So let me ask you this: who is your MVP for the halfway point?
I gotta agree with you. If Harp was healthy, I'd say him. But I gotta go with Schwarber. And then I would agree. Schwarber's a 1A, Wheeler's a 1B. And this is gonna sound really messed up. I think the team needed Bryce to go down.
Really?
Because he was carrying them through a lot of games, just like he was at the end of the season last year. Him going down has forced guys to step up. And thankfully, this isn't an injury that's going to be career altering, like when McCutchen went down in 19.
Yeah.
And that forced Bryce to step up. I think he's going to come back at a point, and these guys are all going to be firing on the same cylinder, and that's going to be scary.
I really hope so. Because, and I might have mentioned this in the podcast before, but I always think of when I think of stuff like that, I always think of the Flyers in 2000. So the Flyers in 2000 had this great hockey player. His name was Eric Lindros. He was
the
big.
Concussion kid.
Yes, he was big. He was dominant. I mean, he was. I mean, he was great. He's in the Hall of Fame now. But anyway, so in 2000, Lindros went down, and the Flyers went all the way to what is it? The Eastern Conference Finals against the Devils. They were up 3-1. At that point, Lindros decided that he wanted to come back, and he had been injured throughout like the whole playoffs, So he decided that he wanted to come back and he wanted to play because the Flyers were on the brink of the Stanley Cup. He comes back and the Flyers lose 3 in a row, and they get booted from the playoffs. So sometimes it's and you laugh, but 22 years later, that's a lot of pain still.
Well, I don't know if you know this. My best friend, who I do the NAS pod with, is a die-hard Flyers fan.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Well,
he has the Flyers Penguins game that went into multiple overtimes on 2 different VHSs because midway through the game he had to put a new tape in.
No, you know what? I feel so bad because I was a freshman in high school in that game, and I went to bed after the first overtime. My parents forced me. I was like, but I want to stay up and watch the game. And they were like, no, you're going to bed. And it was that playoff run where, the Flyers, they went all the way. They came back. They were down against the Penguins 2-0. They won that series in 6. They were up against the Devils 3-1. Lindros comes back. They lose 3 in a row. So, sometimes, but back to the point is that you're right. Sometimes when you take like the star player out, it forces like the other player or the other players to kind of like work as a team more and not rely so much on who they would think would be the big guy carrying them. And to put it into, I guess, maybe better Phillies terms, well, let's talk about maybe when Abreu was traded back in 2006 to the Yankees. The Phillies were kind of floundering. They traded Abreu. They got what we know of as nobody back in the deal. But they went on like a run pretty much like right after that then.
So let me get this right. You are stating that the trade of Abreu was the catalyst to lead to 2008.
I mean, now that you backed me into a corner and everything about this,
I'm sorry.
I love Abreu.
Abreu's one of your all-time favorites, I know.
He is, because he put up some crazy numbers and does not get the respect in Philly that I think he deserves. But yeah, I hate to say it. I think maybe it was the catalyst for 2007, 2008 onward because, and Rollins, of course, had been on the team already from 2001, and then Utley had been on the team. He got a cup of coffee with the team in 2003, but he wasn't really like a starter until like 2005, 2006, and then of course.
Do you remember his first Sports Illustrated cover?
Who, Utley?
Yep.
Didn't it say that he was like the dirtiest player of all time or something?
It said it was from 2006. It said he was the dirtiest player in baseball.
Now, I think
not dirty like scumbag dirty
yes.
like
down
filthy,
and
covered
dirty.
in dirt all the time.
Yes. And people look at that cover and they're like, even Sports Illustrated said he was a jerk, and I'm like, no, that wasn't what that cover meant. Because I remember I had Sports Illustrated at that time. I still remember that cover. But yeah. Boy, so we got way, off track here. But tell me one thing that you want to see for the Phillies in the second half.
Well, I think I'm going to say the same thing you're probably going to say. Playoffs.
Playoffs?
What do you mean playoffs?
Playoffs? Gosh, I need to see this team in the playoffs. I mean, they're a fun team. They have likable people, and I just want to see them succeed. I really, really do.
I do too.
And I'm really hoping for playoffs also. But let's say, okay, so who's one player that you want to see step up in the second half.
Since we're paying him as much as we are, Castellanos.
Yes. I mean, he's been a bit of a disappointment.
The Ben Simmons mansion curse has hit.
Oh, I know. Excuse me. Oh my. For me, I need to see Real Muto step up a little bit. Now he had the game-winning hit tonight. So maybe that's the start of something big. Who knows?
So here's why I didn't pick JT. Because he's still an excellent defensive player.
Yes.
So I'm almost forgiving the struggles he's having this year because he's still fantastic behind the plate. Yes,
he is. You're right. And so we'll always have that. Everything we'll always have that for the BCIB. But I'm really, really hoping that he kicks it in a high gear and he ends up with at least maybe like a 280 batting average. Although I think you'd have to bat like 340 the rest of the way to get up to to 280. But I mean, and he was an all-star last year still, so it's not like he doesn't have anything left in the tank. All of a sudden, he does. But yes, I would agree with you that Castellanos has been a bit of a disappointment, and I'm worried that he was maybe playing for the contract a little bit. So who knows?
So since we are talking halfway through the season here. What are your thoughts on the possibilities and the rumors that the Phils could end up getting Ian Happ from the Cubs?
Wow, I have not heard this actually. I have not heard this rumor. Do they? I mean, like, so what? Who do you think would trade for Happ?
Well, I mean, the Cubs are pretty awful. Sorry, Denise. I don't think you listen.
Yeah.
It's a rumor I've seen on Reddit. I've seen a little bit of it on Twitter. And it's come up in a few different articles online. I don't know what they'll give up for Happ, but I've read that he is definitely someone they've looked at and they're considering.
Huh. So the way I think of it is this though, is that I'd be afraid to give up, like future prospects or anything for maybe somebody. So let's say that we get him at the trade deadline, then
you slot him into center field.
That's true, so we could put him into center field. The thing is that I like Veerling in center field also because, I mean, he's cheap and he's been playing decently, and I think that he has a lot of room to grow also.
He also has endorsements.
Does he?
Yeah, Car Shield. He does Car Shield commercials.
Oh, that's right. I think I have seen that actually. But so I wouldn't mind just keeping Veerling because let's say best case scenario, I think we had heard that Harper said that he's hoping that it would be a 6-week turnaround, which would be maybe around mid-August that he would come back. So if that's the case, then let's say we get Happ right at the end of July, then would he only play for? I mean, would we really be giving up so much for if?
Well,
so then
Harper would go back into DH because he still has the elbow issue.
That's true. But what about next year, though? Of course, you don't want to think too much about next year. The Braves obviously didn't last year, and they won the World Series.
I mean, Happ has another 2 or 3 seasons under team control.
So that might make the price a little bit steeper, also. Of course,
it would make it a bit steeper, but you would have him for a few more seasons, and you wouldn't have to pay him high money. And then there's that whole Trey Turner rumor that's going about for the offseason.
It's funny.
My goodness.
When you said, you threw me through a loop because you were like, what do you think about the Phillies getting? And I was like, oh, he's going to say Trey Turner. And then you said Ian Happ. And I was like, what? I'm
more willing to buy on Happ than I am Turner, in all honesty. If I got to pick between two. I think Happ's realistic.
Yeah, I mean, I could see us getting Happ now that you mention it. And what kind of a defender is he, though? Is he good in the field? Because we do need somebody solid in center field.
Well, I'd ask Denise of the North Chicago podcast, but I think she might kill me. Because that's one of her favorite current Cubs. So it's not worth the hate I'll get to find out.
I mean, and he's a guy who can hit, over 20 home runs. I mean, he was top 20 in MVP in 2020. Excuse me, oh my. And so, I mean, like, he's batting 280 this year. His OPS is 829. OPS plus is 132. So, I mean, obviously he's been a very successful player. He's only 27. This was first time All-Star this year also. So, I mean, he's obviously a good player that a lot of teams would covet. So, I mean, heck, yeah, I mean, if we can get him, that'd be great. But I just don't want to overspend for that. Like, so if the Phillies are going to be like, yeah, we're going to throw in, O-Hop and Painter and like Mitch Abel or whatever the heck is, I think the other big.
Well, I think Abel is no trade. I think he's someone they're not going to give up.
I know, but that's what I was just saying. I was like, if they decide to like even part with like any of those prospects, I think I'd be like, I don't know. So, but Trey Turner is somebody that I would be excited about because I feel like the Phillies haven't had an honest to God leadoff hitter for quite some time, since Rollins probably, and even Rollins wasn't really a prototypical leadoff hitter. So I mean, like, and then we'd be pretty much we'd be starting to become the Nationals North because we have Harper, Turner, and Schwarber, in the lineup where they all played for the Nationals.
Yeah, but to me, Schwarber was he was a Cub. He won a World Series with the
That's
Cubs.
true.
So I don't look at him as in that.
That's
which
true.
I don't know if you saw in the fantasy baseball chat. Denise sent a hilarious meme of Willem Dafoe, and it says Nationals fans going back to Camden Yards. I'm something of an O's fan.
I'm something of an O's fan myself. Yes, I did see that one. That was good. Heck, and just talking about the Orioles briefly. I love that they're having a little bit of success because
I do too.
The AL East is so tough, and when you can break through in that division against the powerhouses like the Yankees, the Red Sox, and then even the analytics driven Rays, I mean you're doing something right, obviously, and I think the future is bright for the O's anyway. I mean they have
they have Adley issues.
Oh, they do.
Yep. So the two brothers are suing each other that own the team.
Really?
Because the one brother wants to move them to Nashville.
Really?
It's basically Major League, the real story at this point.
Man. All right, well that's worrisome. Maybe I mean, and not only because like I don't want the Nationals to have full control of that region. Also,
well, MLB has gone on record that they, no matter what, a team will be in Baltimore.
And that's good.
And I think since we're veering off topic here, me and you we're centrally located where Pittsburgh's 4 hours, Philly's a few, maybe for you less than a few, because there's an hour between us. We could go to Baltimore if we want to see a game, which I've done, and I'm probably sure you've done as well.
Yep.
As much as I'm a Phillies fan, I'm a baseball fan. I want to see teams like the Pirates and the O's do good because I understand those fan bases are starved for good baseball.
They are, and I agree with you also. I mean, like the Pirates, they had such a rich history. I mean, so obviously they won the World Series in '60, which many people regard as one of the greatest World Series of all time, or at least the greatest Game 7 of all time. And then they won in '71, '79. They went to the 3 straight NLCSs in the early '90s, '90, '91, '92, and then pretty much nothing. I mean, they had a couple winning seasons a couple of years ago where they went to the wild card game and the NLDS and all that. But I mean, other than that, I mean, it doesn't really seem like there's much there. Now, their young shortstop looks pretty good. Well, I think his name is O'Neal Cruz. He keeps like throwing people out, throwing like 100 miles an hour from a shortstop. If I was the first baseman, I'd be a little bit worried when that ball is coming my way. Like the ball just gonna come like like right through the webbing of the glove, and the umpire's gonna be like, I guess he's safe.
So I guess we better get this back to the Phils here before we close up shop for the month.
Mm-hmm.
So home run derby. Do you think Schwarber's going to go far? Do you think I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. I think we both want him to win it, but I want to be realistic because that's a tough crowd he's going against.
Oh, he's going to win.
There we go. There we go.
It's going to be him against Alonso in the final round, and I think Schwarber will take him 15-12. He's going to hit 15 home runs in the final round. Alonso will hit 12.
Take it to the sports book, folks.
That's right. I'm going to get like all these messages on Tuesday, like, I lost $3,000 because of you.
All right. We better wrap this up here. We're a little over, but that's okay. I'm editing it. Brad isn't, so he's not going to worry. Okay. You can find me every other week on the Not Another Sports podcast, where myself and my best friend David, we cover general sports talk geared towards all fans. This past episode, we talked about the Cleveland Browns QB issues, sending Baker Mayfield away while they don't know if Deshaun Watson's even going to play the season. We talked about sports uniforms we would want to see brought back because the Edmonton Oilers are bringing back their classic look, i.e. I went with the Pirates 1979 look with the pillbox hats because it's really nice looking.
Nice.
Yeah, I did. And you can find the Not Another Sports podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and we're also on YouTube as well. Tory, what do you got to plug?
You can support Philly Baseball Together podcast and the Baseball Together podcast network by picking up a shirt, cap, hoodie, or more at 9plusus.com. And when you go there, listeners of the Philly Baseball Together pod can also take 15% off their order using code FIPOD at checkout. And also, I do have a music channel on YouTube where I try to sing some songs. He's got
a beautiful voice, folks.
Thank you. I am the bearded bald baritone because I have a beard, I am bald, and I sing baritone. La la la. I sing better than that, on my actual channel.
He does.
Excuse me. So please give it a listen because I've really been trying to to grow the channel a little bit, and it's something that I do for fun, so I can get away from my soul crushing job,
Well, on that note, thank you for joining us for this episode of the Philly Baseball Together podcast. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts. You can find us under the Baseball Together podcast network. Please remember, when you find us, subscribe, rate, review. Let us know how we're doing, what you like, and we'll do more of it. With that, this episode is out of here.
Out of here!